They're given one more clue. X marks the spot, and with that, the voice says that the time for their game has begun. Okay, man, talk about a rude wake-up call. On one end, we've got Lawrence, who's calm, collected, and trying to keep things under control. And then there's Adam, who decided to take the immediately start screaming like a 6-year-old girl approach. I'm not gonna lie, I'd be...
Are we done? Yeah, we're gonna keep going until we, 41 minutes. guess I could. Winning right? Yeah, no, the game mostly did not bore me. Yellow roar. Yeah. Wow. I am so happy. What did I even do? How are we done? I do not know why people play these games. Oh yeah! Okay. Wait, what? Oh man, okay, do I have to... okay, oh yeah, no, I'm out. Okay. Yeah, no, I know. Oh, poo-poo. way too young. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, yay, hooray. Ugh. Wow, yeah. Yay. Oh. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Huh? Yeah, okay. Yeah, wow. Okay.
Freaking out too, but it seems like there are a few obvious options that these two could try if they just slow down for just 1 second and think things through. First things first, we need to start by carefully checking every inch of the room that we can for any hidden tools or clues that might help us escape, especially the X marking the spot that Jigsaw mentioned at the end of Lawrence's tape. It'd be better to work together with the other guy for now, since we're both in the same situation, but we don't want to get too comfortable either, because there might be a time when things take a turn for the worse, and we need to make some tough decisions. Plus, for all that either of them knows right now, the guy standing across from you could be the one that brought you in there in the first place. So we need to be careful who to trust. After getting our bearings, the next step is to start attacking the problems one at a time in an organized and strategic way. Before we can go anywhere, we'll need to get out of the chains first. But instead of focusing on the chains themselves, I would pay more attention to the locks and rusty pipes that they're attached to. Those types of padlocks can be easily broken just by applying enough force. So I'd look around for anything nearby that I could use as an improvised tool, and try to either smash them open the old-fashioned way or pick the lock if we wanted to try that approach. Now, my guy Lawrence here is great at coming up with ideas when he's busy bossing Adam around. But where's that same brain power when it comes to himself? There's an obvious solution staring at him right in the face here. If Adam could reach the tape player, then why doesn't Lawrence try to reach the revolver next? I would try to tear some of those thinner pipes off of the wall behind him to give him some extra reach. Or just taking the same approach as Adam and using some of my clothes or belt tied together, which should work fine, especially if I find something heavy nearby to add some weight to it. If he could get his hands on that weapon, then that would open up all kinds of possibilities. He could shoot out the lock or just kill Adam and call it a day. Although it might be better to leave him alive for now, just in case he needs a meat shield later on. In the meantime, I'd also take turns just shouting for help as loud as we could. It might seem silly, yeah, but it literally couldn't hurt to try. On the bright side, at least they have 8 whole hours to figure it out, which is way more than some of Jigsaw's other victims are going to get. So, when you look at it that way, they're actually kind of lucky for how this game was set up. The situation in the room is awkward to say the least, but Lawrence here noticed something about his tape that makes him think twice. Playing it back, he's able to make out the words, "Follow your heart," whispered quietly at the end of the message. And sure enough, there's a heart traced in poo-poo right there on the front of the toilet tank. It's up to Adam to reach on in there and start searching, but after digging around for a minute in the most disgusting water imaginable, these two geniuses suddenly realize that they might want to check underneath the lid. There we go. A black trash bag containing 2 rusty hacksaws. Not exactly what you'd call a Christmas present, but at least they're getting somewhere. Their first instinct is to start working away at their chains, but the saws are too weak to make even a scratch in the thick metal no matter how hard they try. Adam here goes so hard that he ends up completely breaking his, and chunks it across the room where it shatters off a corner of the mirror. As for Lawrence, he decides that he better stop before he breaks his saw too, and that's when he suddenly understands the terrifying truth. The saws weren't meant for them to cut through the chain at all, no. They were meant for cutting off their own feet. Putting the pieces together, He realizes that they must have been taken hostage by a notorious criminal who's still on the loose. And he knows this because Lawrence himself was once a suspect in the case. 5 months ago, a team of detectives began to uncover a series of grisly death traps, including one where a man was forced to crawl through a maze of barbed wire and killed in the process. At every crime scene, they'd always find the same two things: a cassette tape with a message for the victim and a jigsaw puzzle piece cut out of their skin. Although the news started calling him the Jigsaw Killer, the truth is that he's never technically killed anybody. Instead, he forces his victims to play by the rules of his deadly games, offering them a slim chance to survive if they somehow complete the challenge, as a way to teach them a new appreciation for their wasted lives. Okay. This guy is seriously like the worst therapist ever. I mean, I get the point that he's trying to make, but there's gotta be a better way to teach people a lesson than forcing them to compete in the most complicated death traps that the world has ever seen. Am I right or am I right? Anyway, Lawrence here just made an absolutely terrifying observation. He seems to think that the hacksaws were meant for them to cut off their own feet. And while I can see how this would technically get them out of their current predicament, I can't say that it's definitely the best idea for several reasons. Going through with something like that already sounds bad enough, but the reality of the situation would be worse than I think any of us could even imagine. Besides the obvious, excruciating pain that you're going to be facing, severe blood loss, and the risk of even going into shock, you might not think that losing a foot would seem all that bad compared to spending the rest of your life in this horrific-ass Ebola dungeon. Your feet actually contain several major arteries, which means that you could bleed out in minutes if you were able to actually get all the way through. The rapid blood loss and extreme pain could also cause you to go into shock and lose consciousness, which is the last thing that you would want to happen when every second means the difference between life and death. Follow me. Hypothetically, if they were going to try it, there are some strategies that Lawrence and Adam could use to increase their chances of survival. They're going to want to choose a spot as close to the ankle as possible, since the bones there are thinner and easier to cut through. God damn, just thinking about it. Before starting, it would be crucial to apply a tourniquet as tightly as possible just above the cut point to minimize the blood flow. Using a shirt or belt should do the trick. The key would be to try and do it as quickly as possible. You know, like ripping off a band-aid, except 100,000 times worse. Once it was all said and done, they'd need to immediately apply pressure to the wound and get medical attention as fast as they possibly can, since even if they were lucky to survive the first 5 minutes, they'd still only have about 2 hours at the most before things really started to go downhill. Trust me, I've been watching this movie on DVD since 2004. I've thought about it a lot, you know? With that being said, going footless definitely isn't the best strategy. Instead, I'd try something obvious that they're both overlooking, and just use that saw on the locks or the rusty pipe. Those should both be much easier to get through than the thick steel chain. And even thin pieces from Adam's broken saw could be used to try and pick the locks or somehow pry them open. We also can't let all of this craziness distract us from keeping an eye on the other guy in the room. If Lawrence had been paying attention, then he would have noticed that Adam here clearly found something else besides just the 2 hacksaws in the bag, and deliberately hid it from him in the bathtub where he can't see. Whether you choose to call him out on it right away or not is a different story, but you need to be paying enough attention to notice something like that if you're going to make it out of here in one piece. At some point during their investigation, the detectives come across another test chamber, this one built for an insurance scammer named Mark. As a way to teach him a lesson, Jigsaw poisoned the man and brought him to a basement where he'd stashed the only antidote in a locked safe at the center of the room. His only chance for survival was to find the combination hidden somewhere in the hundreds of numbers painted all over the walls. But every inch of the floor was covered in broken glass, and Mark himself had been covered in a flammable liquid, making his only source of light, a small candle with an open flame, also his greatest danger. Needless to say, Mark here didn't make it, but the crime scene gave the detectives some interesting leads. For one, a peephole cut out of the wall told them that Jigsaw here likes to watch his games play out live and in person. But what was even more interesting was the pen that they found belonging to none other than our good old buddy Dr. Lawrence Gordon. Lawrence himself was busy giving giving some interns the rundown on his patient, John Kramer, who was there receiving treatment for an inoperable brain tumor, when he was called over to the intercom to come to his office right away. To his surprise, he found city detectives David Tapp and Stephen Singh already there waiting for him, and they immediately started grilling him about his alibi from the night before. Although he wasn't exactly innocent himself, Lawrence knew that he hadn't committed any crimes. But when the detectives showed him that they found his pen at the latest Jigsaw scene, he had no choice but to follow them down to the station for questioning. Without saying too much, Lawrence admitted to his lawyer that it couldn't have been him, because the truth is that he was seeing someone that night who he didn't want his wife finding out about. The lawyer suggested that he might as well have come clean, and after confirming his alibi, Lawrence was cleared of any suspicion for the time. But before he could leave, the detectives wanted him to listen to the story of a Jigsaw survivor who they'd just brought in, saying that it might help him remember any leads. In the next room over, they brought in a young woman named Amanda, the only person to have survived a jigsaw trap so far. Nervous, she began to recall a story of how she was taken in by the maniac and woke up restrained to a chair with a horrifying contraption already strapped to her face. After struggling for a moment without any luck, a television on the other side of the room suddenly turned on, showing a video of a sinister-looking puppet that Jigsaw used to explain the rules of her game. He called this one the reverse bear trap, and when the timer ran out, the device would split Amanda's head in half from her jaw up, killing her instantly. Her only hope of escape was to find the key hidden in the stomach of a dead body in the corner of the room. As soon as she stood up, the timer on Amanda's mask activated, leaving her with only 60 seconds to complete the challenge or die trying. Panicking, she grabbed a scalpel from the floor, only to realize that the dead man was very much still alive, just paralyzed with medication. But by then, it was already too late, and she had no choice but to cut the key out of his stomach, killing the man in the process. Luckily for her, at least, Amanda was able to unlock the device and save herself just in time, receiving a congratulations from the puppet, who rode in on a squeaky old tricycle, for having what it took to survive. The craziest part of all is that Amanda here was actually grateful to Jigsaw for what happened, saying that he helped her kick the addiction that would have eventually gotten her if she hadn't quit. Okay, this chick is seriously f***ed up, but I've got to give her some credit. She did the damn thing and made it out with her face still intact, which is more than any of Jigsaw's other victims can say so far. We're going to be seeing a lot more of Amanda here in later parts of the story, but for now, this gives us a great opportunity to point out something important. Thanks to Amanda, we've just had a first-hand demonstration on the #1 rule for surviving Jigsaw's death traps. The key here is to never under any circumstances start flailing around and freaking out before you've had a chance to carefully get a grasp of the entire situation. In this case, the timer on Amanda's trap wasn't activated until she stood up out of her chair and pulled the pin. Now, if she'd realized this before the timer was actually started, then it would have given her the option of examining the entire setup and trying to figure out a way to beat it without ever even activating the trap in the first place. After getting her hands free, she could have spent some time investigating the device itself and seeing if there was some way that she could damage, deactivate, or jam one of its crucial components, like the trigger pin, the timer, or the clasps holding it onto her head. Jigsaw is a pretty smart guy, so odds are good that there won't be any obvious weaknesses in the design for her to exploit. But giving yourself the time to at least try is much better than starting the timer and only having 60 seconds to figure it out before your head explodes. Plus, she could always just sit right there in that spot for the next 3 days or so before she eventually dies of dehydration, and just hope that some help happens to come her way before she has to handle the situation on her own. Once the timer started, she really didn't have any other options besides following through with the rules of the game the way that Jigsaw had set it up. That'd be easy enough if it really was just a dead body that you had to deal with, but realizing that the guy was alive completely changed everything. And it may have not been the most ethical decision, but you've gotta at least respect the fact that Amanda did what she had to do. Now it's off to the needle pit with her. I'm looking at you, Saw Part 2. But as for Lawrence and Adam, they've still got a long way to go. Hearing all of this from Lawrence makes Adam kind of paranoid, but when he grabs a piece of broken glass to threaten him, he notices something strange. One side of the glass is see-through, meaning that it's actually a one-way mirror, and after smashing the rest of it with some junk that he finds on the floor, they realize that someone has been watching them on a camera all along. Taking everything in, the two of them finally begin to understand that every part of this nightmare was precisely calculated in advance by Jigsaw. Adam questions how the doctor here can stay so composed when his wife and daughter could be in danger, but he says that protecting them is exactly why he's so determined to escape. To prove that he's telling the truth, Lawrence throws him his wallet full of pictures of his family, but as he's looking through them, Adam here makes a disturbing discovery. Hidden inside is a photo of Allison and Diana all tied up. With regards, from Jigsaw himself. On the reverse side is another message, reading, "Sometimes you see more with your eyes shut." Throwing the wallet back over to Lawrence, he decides to keep the picture a secret for now while he tries to figure out what the message could mean. On the night before, Lawrence left home for what he said was a late-night work call, but that was his biggest mistake. As soon as he was gone, someone kidnapped his wife and daughter, and now the man has them both tied up in their own apartment. But when he gets up to check outside of the window, he has no idea that there's someone else watching them from across the street, who Jigsaw doesn't even know about. After finishing up with Lawrence, Detective Tapp spent the rest of the night watching Amanda's tape over and over again until he finally found what he was looking for. For one brief shot, he could make out a particular graffiti tag on the wall behind the puppet, as well as the faint sound of a fire alarm going off somewhere in the background. This allowed Tapp and his partner Singh to narrow the location down to an abandoned mannequin factory across town. So they set off to the location to see if they can find any leads, never suspecting that they were about to walk right into a death trap. With Tapp leading the way, the two detectives broke into the abandoned factory and were able to quickly find Jigsaw's makeshift workshop hidden up on the second floor of the building. Besides what they saw on the tape, the place was full of tiny models of Jigsaw's recent traps, but that's when they realized that they weren't alone. Pulling back one of the sheets, they were shocked to find this whole-ass guy hidden under there, strapped to some sort of contraption, with two power drills pointed straight at his neck, when all of a sudden, they heard the elevator coming up, and in walked Jigsaw himself just as the detectives took cover behind some nearby construction materials. From their hiding spot in the corner of the room, the detectives watched as Jigsaw approached the man in the trap, springing out to confront him when they thought that he'd let his guard down, but before they could even react, Jigsaw kicked a button on the floor and activated the device, throwing the whole situation into complete chaos. Forced to make a choice between going after him or saving the victim, Singh jumped into action trying to deactivate the trap, while Tapp held Jigsaw at gunpoint. With only seconds left before the man would be killed, Singh quickly drew his weapon and shot out the drills, saving his life. But while Tapp was distracted, Jigsaw busted out a full-blown Assassin's Creed blade and slit his throat with one swift move, disappearing deeper into the factory before Singh could catch him. Somehow, Tapp here managed to survive the attack, and handed Singh the shotty, telling him to go after Jigsaw instead, the chase leading him down into the tunnels below the building where death could be waiting for him around any corner. In one of the hallways, Singh drew down on Jigsaw and fired a blast straight into his back, dropping him to the floor. But as he moved in to investigate, he accidentally activated a tripwire that automatically fired several shotguns down at him from above. By the time that Tapp could get to him, Jigsaw had already escaped, his body armor having saved him from the fatal shot, leaving Tapp here completely obsessed with finding the madman and stopping him once and for all. Okay, well fellas, I gotta say that I don't think that could have gone any worse if you tried. It's almost like that you forgot that you were going after the most deranged, calculating criminal genius that you've ever encountered in your entire careers, and you just decided to treat it like your first day on the job instead. Knowing his MO, you would have thought that they would have been just a little bit more careful about their approach, but now we've got one detective down, Jigsaw still on the loose, and there's really only one person to blame for this entire debacle. Detective Tapp, you, sir, have majorly up. Alright, bud, since you're clearly struggling here, let me sit you down for a little Jigsaw 101. This guy loves his traps, clearly, so if you're going after him in his own workshop, it might be a good idea to expect the unexpected. Just a suggestion. Honestly, you two are even lucky enough that you made it through the front door without being killed, considering you just kicked it in without even checking. But I guess that luck doesn't hold up forever now, huh? As a matter of fact, let's talk about my boy Sing for a minute, because what just happened to him was wrong. So wrong. On so many levels. Tap here may have up, but poor Sing was the one who really got done dirty. You want to know what this guy's plans for the night were? He was heading down to the bar with his buddies from work to get a beer and a burger and then going home to be with his wife and kids. But instead, he got roped into an illegal search by this Jigsaw-obsessed maniac and ended up paying the ultimate price. At least he was being more careful, but even that still wasn't enough. And I guess that's just the risk you take when you're dealing with a guy who isn't a killer, but set up a vertical shotgun booby trap for anyone who tries to trespass in his workshop. Seriously. 4 shotguns on a tripwire? But he's not a killer? Yeah, okay. Here I was thinking that Jigsaw's victims were only supposed to be bad people. Sing here did absolutely nothing to deserve this besides just doing his job. And he didn't even get any warning or anything. Just straight up